Get the latest Impact Podcast right into your inbox each week. Subscribe by entering your email address at impactpodcast.com to make sure you never miss an interview. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian, and I'm so honored to have with us today Lijia Zhang. She's the writer and social commentator, and a very prolific writer at that. We're going to get into her books. Lijia, welcome to the Impact Podcast.
Thank you so much, John, for having me. Yes. Can I continue the introduction? Each Chinese character has a meaning. So my given name, my Zhang is the most common surname in the world. And given my given name, Lijia, Li as in beautiful, Jia refined. Beautiful and refined, obviously, this is my parents' impossible dream.
Well, I think they put a lot of pressure on you right from the get-go, but I think you've lived up to it as well. I mean, so
wow.
When I've listened to you speak before many times, and I've read all about you, one of my funnest readings about you is there was something written where it said you are a rocket factory girl turned writer, columnist, and public speaker, and one of the few Chinese social commentators who writes in both English and Chinese for international publications. Lijia, talk a little bit about what does this mean? Where did you grow up in China, and how did you get on this ever fascinating journey that you're on, where you really were a rocket factory girl, which I want you to explain, who then turned, of course, prolific writer?
Right. Okay. I was born into a poor working class family in Nanjing, in eastern part of China, on the banks of Yangtze River. I grew up in the residential compound, which belonged to the factory my mother worked for. And all my neighbors worked for the same factory, and all my friends were the children of the factory workers. But I had a grand plan. I wanted to go to university. I want to become a writer and journalist. But
what informed you at such a young and tender age to actually have a big dream? Because usually when children are shown a lot of options, they don't know how to dream big. Where did you get the opportunity to have a big dream like that?
I guess I was a good student. I mean, in China, to be a good student, you needed to have a good memory. So I just remembered I had a good memory. That's all you need to be a good student. And I dreamed of going to university. Because China, shortly before that, China resumed the system of, before that, during the Cultural Revolution, and university was stopped. So I was a good student. My teacher encouraged me to pursue dream. Particularly, I had a dream to become a writer and journalist. Actually, I didn't quite understand the difference between writer and journalist. But anyway, I want to go to university, become a writer. The teacher often at school, my teachers often read my writing as a good example to show other students. And I won competition in writing, which was why I wanted to be a writer and journalist. But when I was 16, I was taken out of school. I was 16. That was 1980. So you clever people can quickly work out how old I am precisely.
You're younger than me, so that's all that matters at this point. It's
only slightly, John.
So you were 16 and pulled out by the government to go to work?
No. My parents, and basically my mother.
Okay.
Because at that time there was a temporary policy which allowed children to take over their parents' job if parents retired early. That was the way to solve the soaring unemployment at that time. So my mother, being uneducated, and she never saw the benefit of education. She thought the most important thing for a mother was to secure a job, especially a prestigious job. Like a mother had, she worked for the state-owned enterprise. Among other products, the factory produced intercontinental missiles that were capable of reaching North America. I have to say, though, sorry, I have to stress, I was no nuclear scientist. I did the most basic job, the frying line work. So I didn't know any top nuclear secrets. Sorry.
So how long were you a rocket factory girl? How long did you were there? Started when you were 16. How long did that go for?
I worked there for 10 years.
Wow. And did you still nurture your dream of becoming a writer and potentially also a reporter or a columnist as well?
Well, I think at that time, I had these grand dreams, and then I found myself being trapped at the bottom of the factory well, become a factory worker. So the factory was interesting in some way. It was a mini communist state. So it provided lots of things for workers, like the flat we had were allocated by the factory. And there was the factory provided the medical care, the factory provided dining hall. So we all provided lots of things, but there were lots of control. The first day we entered the factory, we were given a long list of things not to do. No lipsticks, no skinny jeans, no trousers with flares either, no dating within 3 years of entering the factory. So there were just lots of rules, and I just wanted to as an escape route. So I decided to teach myself English. So of course, looking back and learning English has effectively changed my life.
Yeah, but I mean, wait a second. This is when you were 16.
I began to teach my English halfway through the factory.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yes.
So you were 21. So your Lexus call, so it's about 1985. There was no internet. There was none of these easy courses that now have become ubiquitous in our life. How did you go about what sounds like a very difficult task of teaching yourself English? What was available to you? What tools were available to you?
Of course, as you pointed out, today, there are so many courses on offer. There's so many devices that you could watch, pirated the latest Hollywood movies, but none of those things when I was young. So I had to borrow a radio from my cousin. Even radio was a luxury. We didn't have a television.
Wow.
So, and I forgot to mention how poor we were.
Wow.
Why my parents took me out of the school, because we were so poor.
Right.
Every month we were only allowed a tiny amount of meat. Back then, everything like cooking oil, meat, milk, all these things were rations, rice. You couldn't just to satisfy our craving for meat. My brother and I used to go out to catch cicadas and then roast them over a small bonfire and then munch them up. Have you tried it?
I don't I don't think I have, but I do know people that have, and some people use it as an alternate form of protein. So I think,
Yes, it was a protein, yes. And also when it's roasted, it's quite crunchy.
oh my gosh, wow, that's so yeah. You didn't have a lot of tools available to you except the radio,
The radio. So I borrowed the radio, and
Okay,
then I followed English teaching program called New Concept English.
okay,
And the new concept, indeed, I just become fascinated by this language system, so different from our Chinese characters. And then every weekend, I would cycle for half an hour to go to the city center to go to the English corner. That's a place where people who were keen to learn English, we got together. And we always, talked so loudly as if the sheer volume, to compensate the lack of fluency.
right. That's
And
very
occasionally we will see foreigners pass by. We will actually bounce on them, kind of bombard them with questions. Where are you from? What do you do? How much money you earn?
when you met at that corner or that city center area, were there Americans that would come through and that were English speaking, or other English speaking people that you would then try to co-opt and talk to before they could walk through your group?
So the vast majority of the people who went to the English corners were people like me.
Oh, wow.
From different from all walks of life. They were all
Right.
keen to learn English.
Got it.
But there were some foreigners, Americans, Canadians, or from other parts of the world. They taught English or worked in Nanjing. Sometimes they passed by just by chance, or sometimes they will go there with the hope, the kindness of sharing and, just meeting. Some people just, sort of was interesting because we began, if you go there, not just the basic questions, the people began to ask you all sorts of questions. Some foreigners thought it was quite an interesting way to get to know China. They will go there, but mostly people passed by. Looking back now, we asked really not very appropriate questions. And how much money you earn? How are you married? How many children do you have? Don't worry, if now you've met me, John, I will not ask too personal questions. And anyway, so yeah, I give myself credit. I'm not a language gifted, but I was willing to learn. I was willing to speak. Try to give an example. What did I sound like? Let me give you an example. 梅瑞克里斯姆斯安德海屁刘眼儿。
What was that? I didn't understand that. Help me.
梅瑞克里斯姆斯 Merry Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
海屁刘眼儿。
Oh, and Happy New Year. Thank you. Oh my gosh. So you were getting the whole cadence, the flow, the how to do the whole thing. You were putting it all together brick by brick. That's fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. And also I was so obsessed in learning English. I often found myself talking loudly to English to myself, or I would sing Carpenter songs. Sing a song, sing a.
You would just pick modern songs and sing them. You teach yourself to sing them.
Yes. So you, John, you probably think Carpenters was a bit naff, but for us, the Carpenters represented the high culture from the West, because the Carpenters was one of the first Western albums that went on sale in China.
Really?
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, Barbra Streisand always said that Karen Carpenter had the voice of an angel and was probably even a better singer than she was. She always credited her with one of the greatest singing voices ever. So that's not a bad first album to bring to China, actually.
But my colleagues began to, I talking English to myself, and I sing Carpenter songs, and I dressed up in outlandish fashion. People began to laugh at me. They called me a toad who dreams to eat swan's meat. toad was something crawling on the ground and swan something flying high in the sky. Basically, they were laughing at me for dreaming to have something impossible. So I was toad who dreamed to eat swan's meat.
Did you know in your heart that English was the key to your freedom, or or did you have to articulate that not only to yourself but also to others around you, or to them were they learning English for other purposes, but you knew it was the key to your freedom at that point?
I decided to learn English. I was just hoping to begin with. I was hoping to get a job as an interpreter with one of those many Western companies that were slowly setting up shops.
Did that happen? Did you ever get that job? Did you get a job?
I applied. It was extremely difficult, and I believe I did make a big progress. And I actually, after my English improved, I started to translate TV travel documentaries for local TV stations. So I improved my English, but to get a job with one of those foreign companies was really difficult. I applied for at first to the import-export company, but without connection, it was extremely difficult to find such jobs.
Of course. So you were 21. You started this English journey. When did you finally say to yourself, "It's time to make my move, Lijia? Let's go. Let's do something. I got enough of the English under my belt. I want to go do something with it." How did that happen, and when?
I wanted to leave. That was towards the end of my stay after nearly 10 years.
Okay.
In 1989, you know what happened in 1989?
Yep.
Something extraordinary happened in 1989. Unprecedented pro-democracy movement broke up in China.
Right.
I'm talking about Tiananmen, talking about 1989, people thought about students. In Tiananmen. The movement was led by students, started in Tiananmen, but grew to be a nationwide movement. I was still a factory worker in Nanjing in 1989. I actually organized that movement, began a nationwide movement. So I organized the biggest protest among factory workers in support the student movement. Wow. So that was then I thought about maybe then there was a crackdown. Then I thought maybe I should try to leave the country.
Understood. And where did you go?
So I went to, at first I was hoping to go to America. One of my best friends, the book was dedicated to my friend Zhou Fang, who was the book of talking about my memoir, Socialism is Great. So the book was dedicated to my friend Zhou Fang, who was my mentor at the factory. Okay. She was 2 years older than me, but was a more worldly, much wiser lady, and she encouraged me to study English.
Wow! Is she still with us? She's still alive?
She's indeed. I know she came to visit me just over a year ago to celebrate my 60th birthday.
Well,
we're still best friends.
She still. Where does she live now? Where does she live?
She lives in. She's the senior manager with 3M.
Wow.
Yes. So anyway, so she was hoping to help me, and then I met somebody, Oxford students. So which was why I ended up here in England.
And you ended up in England, and now you go to England. And then what was China Remembers your first book that you wrote? Was China Remembers?
Well, China Remembers was the first published book. Before that, when I left China in 1990, and 1 year later, I was approached by a publishing company in China. They want me to write a book about a Western image of Chairman Mao, and to be published on the 100th anniversary of Chairman Mao's birthday. I was living at Oxford at that time. I interviewed many people from all walks of life, and I spent many hours at a Bodleian Library and I read many books written by Western scholars about Chairman Mao. I completed the book, but the book, unfortunately, in China, there's a strict censorship system. So my book did not pass the censorship. The editor underlined in the red pen, said this is too negative. So anyway, they said that this is far too negative. So which is why I decided that I'm going to be a writer and journalist, and I'm going to write in English, because in this way I do not have to endure the censorship.
Understood. And when did your career take off as a writer in English? Because obviously you've written, you've lectured around the world. How many books have you written? I've seen 5 or 6 of them. How many books have you written in total?
I've written a few more. Oh. They have been published. For example, this Western image of Chairman Mao didn't pass the censorship. In fact, I couldn't even find the manuscript. And then a few years ago, I wrote a book about left behind children, referred to the children of migrant workers. You must have heard of the massive rural urban migration.
Yeah.
But after the COVID, many migrant workers returned to their hometown. And by then, the speed of the rural urban migration had slowed down. So now it is no longer a major problem. So anyway, so that I'll just give example that I've written more than have just been published. Anyway, so quite a lot of writers have to suffer that fate.
But now you are a young woman still living in England. Where did you? How long after you got there did you realize my career is going to work? My dream is going to happen. I'm going to be a columnist and a writer. When did that all, materialize in your?
Yeah. So after I left China, I left China in 1990. Right. So once arrived here, a childhood dream stirred. I mean, all these years, I wanted to become a writer and journalist. That dream had never died. Right. So I took a correspondence course, and I started writing articles for my local newspaper in Nanjing. And then my purpose of not leaving China, I just want to see the world. And after a few years, I returned to China with my ex-husband. And as I mentioned, I want to be a writer and journalist. So I didn't quite understand the difference between the writer and journalist. I just had this vague idea just to write. So I first become a fixer. Fixer are the people who help. I mean, when you travel abroad, John, you use fixers, right?
I gotcha. Yes.
And they're the unsung heroes in the journalist world, aren't they?
That's right. Oh, wow.
So anyway,
I
worked as a fixer. At first, I met quite a few journalists, and I used to tell them, look, for example, there was a rural urban migration just started. I think, why don't you do a piece about migration? And during the Chinese New Year time, just millions of people will just get on the train. And anyway, so one of my friends took my suggestion, took with me. I interpreted for her. And so her company was ABC, Australian Broadcasting Company, didn't agree to pay. She had assigned official interpreter. His written English was excellent, but he couldn't speak English properly. So my friend, Ali Moore, this Australian journalist friend, she would take me and using me as an interpreter. So
wow, I love it.
So I started the career as a fixer, interpreter, local fixer. Yeah. So,
and take me through this, because I'm always fascinated, because and we're going to talk about this later on, about the whole phenomena of tiger moms. But what did your mom and dad think? You grew up in Nanjing, and now you're in London, and you're in the UK. I mean, was this were they extraordinarily proud? Were they scared? And was this all new to them? Their daughter leaving not only their city, but their country and living somewhere in a strange but promised land?
Both my parents have passed away. My mother passed away 6 months before COVID. And my father passed away 13 years ago. Of course, as children, I always wanted my parents to be proud of me.
Sure.
I'll tell you a joke. It was not a joke, it's real. I once I was invited to give a lecture at the American embassy, and it went really well, and I was very proud of myself. I called my mother to tell her this.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, if only you got a husband."
Oh my gosh. Well, that deflated that balloon pretty quickly. It brought you right back down to size, just like a mother can do, right?
Anyway, I think for somebody uneducated like my mother, it's very, very difficult. Like, for example, one of my proudest moments, I gave a lecture at Harvard. I was introduced as the, rocket factory turned writer, and I gave a lecture at Harvard. And in fact, I've lectured all the top universities, Stanford and NYU, Columbia. But it was very, very, I published New York Times. After becoming a journalist, I told myself I wanted to get published in New York Times, and I managed. But it's very difficult to tell my mother. I was interviewed by BBC, I was in Sky, I was in a panel in Francis Fukushima. But all the things didn't mean to my parents.
Oh my gosh. Your mom was still very traditional. She was worried about you finding a good husband.
Yes. And before that, she often said, "Why couldn't you find a job as an interpreter? Your English is so good." Because I'm a freelancer. To her, freelancer was only slightly better than a beggar.
Oh my gosh. Oh my. How old was your mom, if you don't mind me asking, when she passed right before COVID? How old was she?
She was 84. I mean, she in her book it was 85. Anyway, so yeah.
And after you became this massive success with so many published books and all the writings around the world and lecturing, was she extraordinarily proud of what you've accomplished before she passed?
I hope she did in some way, but I also knew she worried about me, and she was very conservative, and she was very old-fashioned. So until she passed away, she never told my neighbors that I got divorced. So I tried to go back to China 2-3 times a year. And once we were walking the street and somebody said, "Where was your husband? Where is your husband?" And I was just about to say, my mother kind of pulled my sleeve, said, "Oh," talked about something else. But for her, though, it's great. The divorce was still a disgrace.
Yeah, that's a difficult topic. For our listeners and our viewers who've just joined us, we've got the delightful Lijia Zhang with us today. She's a writer, social commentator, a public speaker, and much more. You can find her at her website, ZhangLijia.com. You don't have to write that down. It's going to be in the show notes. You don't have to stop driving your car or lifting weights or walking your dog. It will be in the show notes today, as will many, many links to her wonderful books. Lijia, let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now. After you became a writer and a columnist, and you were an interpreter who then evolved into writing and became a columnist. What message did you start giving then, as terms of becoming a bridge between the East and the West, China and Western cultures, and things of that such? What was the beginning of that message that you wanted to leave your listeners or your readers with?
I think China has become one of the most consequential countries in the world.
Sure.
But yet there's just an incredible amount of ignorance about China. And also, I've noticed, especially in the past few years, there has been growing fear about China. There's been a lot more talks about China being portrayed as a threat. I understand why there's such a fear. I understand that after China's failure in condemning Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and all these factors after China and United States engaged this rivalry fight is still going on. And I just said, yeah, so China suffered some, PR setback. Let's put it that way. And I just think there's a growing fear about China. And as I said, I can understand why there's such a fear. And of course, there's China, apart from PR, poor PR, China also has a poor human rights record. There's the issue about Hong Kong, Jimmy Lai being given such a long sentence, which I think was totally wrong. There's the issue with Taiwan. China, Xi Jinping keeps threatening to take back Taiwan, which we'll talk about that if you're willing. Yeah. And so China has a poor human rights record. So there's low media freedom, even though people do find a way to get around the government Wi-Fi, the firewall. But I personally believe that some of the fear about China is generated by ignorance.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is to help people to understand where China is coming from, what's happening now. I think if you have a bit more better understanding of China, there will be more fear. Perhaps there'll be more empathy.
I so agree with you, but I want to ask you this. You shocked me a little bit with what you said. It's not that what you said shocked me, and I totally understand it, but I want to go back historically. I grew up in Queens, New York City, and very diverse area. Little Neck, Queens was a very diverse area where I grew up, and our schools were diverse. And I ended up I went to high school in Manhattan and college in Manhattan. And what I always got, what the feeling I always got among my young peers was that China, by the media in the United States, even as a child growing up, was always made out to be this boogeyman, a boogeyman of the United States. And when you look at the numbers today, and my numbers might be off a point or two, but you tell me what this means to you. Only about 42% of Americans, only about 42% have passports. Out of that 42%, 35% have been to Canada, either Canada, Mexico, or Europe, or some combination thereof. There's only about 7% or so of American citizens that have ever been to the East, China, Japan, anywhere in the East, because they took the China boogeyman trope, incorrect trope, and they literally painted a brush with the whole East. So how can we expect the West to love and understand and fall in love with the country? I was inspired by an NYU professor, a very well-known Chinese NYU professor, back when I was a young man. And I was so excited to go. And I first started going to Hong Kong, Shenzhen, when I was 29. But none of the people that were my age were going there ever. It wasn't part of, American society. Now things are changing. Not my children's generation, my children are in their 30s. They are all excited to go explore Shanghai, Hong Kong, Tokyo. That whole part of the world is now, become table stakes for their generation. But for our generation, you and I are the same generation, it was a very different feeling. And so when I asked, Kay Eugene was on our show about 6 months ago, and I asked her one question. I said, if you were sitting with Donald Trump and his top advisors, Scott Bessent, and let's say Marco Rubio, and a couple others today, what would you tell them? And her response to me would be, China doesn't want to take over your country, President Trump and his advisors. China is not interested in taking over your country. If you, Lijia, were advising today Donald Trump, what advice would you give him prior to his very, very momentous trip that's coming up in April to meet with President Xi. What would you advise him? And then I want to hear what would you tell President Xi in anticipation of this meeting?
And I just hope that the American children will learn more about China.
Me too. I'm so excited that my children are so excited about China. But this is a first. I didn't ever feel that excitement from my generation, ever.
For example, average, let's say a teenager in China knows a great deal more about America. They know so much, the film, the music, the history, the politics. But the American kids knows very, very little.
That's the fault of our education system and our media, I believe. I feel that way. I don't feel it's still, we don't give enough good information to them.
Yes, I mean, good info. I mean, in some ways, I can understand that just nature of news. And if you tell something, what's the kind of remember the saying? There was a blood. There's, oh, great. That's negative news often sell. But in China, achieved so much. And how many people know that in the past, since reform and opening up, some 800 million people have been lifted after the poverty. And China is now the second largest economy in the world. And if we're judging by, purchase power parity, China is the number one power in the world. But those many Americans still don't know that.
100% right. And just to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of context, you and I are recording this show right after the very, momentous weekend of American and Israel taking out the leadership of Iran. So what, to me, it seems like the stakes are even higher now going into the April meeting and summit in China between President Xi and President Trump. What are you excited about this meeting? And how would you advise both sides if you were privately asked to advise both sides so the most productive meetings could happen, and we can have good results and a great path forward after this meeting?
Yeah, and I think where there's still China sometimes say, if threatened, if America continue to sell weapons to Taiwan, China may not allow Trump to visit. I think China is in a good place. Lots of Chinese people feel that between the rivalry between China and United States, China has the upper hand. Many people truly believe so. And do you know Trump? What's his Chinese name in China?
Tell me.
Many people call him Chuan Jianguo. Chuan, that's his surname, but it vaguely sounds like Trump. Chuan Jianguo. Jianguo means building China. People are saying Trump is making China great.
Well, there you have it. I mean, that's very interesting. I mean, but there has to be some commonalities and common ground.
But that's the thing. I don't think we should label China as a purely threat, because I mean,
right, makes no sense.
Yes, and maybe a competitive, coexistence.
Isn't there a lot to learn from one another? I mean,
yes.
Isn't there some great ways they can be collaborative?
Absolutely. For example, without China's involvement, climate change, AR governance, management of nuclear weapons, all these things will be pointless without China's involvement. Right. And in fact, China has become a leader in green technology, in battery technology. I mean, China has achieved really this in China's achievements is really, really impressive. And I think you asked me about how I feel, and I think the more interaction, more meeting between China and US is a good thing, because we cannot. I think the China threat is not just a purely that it's real. This, but I don't personally. I don't think that's a good best lens to look at China.
Right.
And I just think that both sides need to understand each other better, and we have to learn to we compete, but we have to cooperate. The two countries.
Right. Isn't it better to look at the world from a lens of abundance than a zero-sum game, a world of scarcity? I mean, both countries are doing so well in so many ways, and there's so much to learn from each country. I get inspired every time I'm in China. I'm inspired. I love Elon Musk. I love Tesla. But when I went to China recently and I got into a BYD car, I thought there was one of the greatest cars for $19,000 USD I've ever been in my life. I mean,
China has also become a leader in EV, electric vehicles.
Also, my understanding from everyone I meet with over there is they're also leading us in AI.
If China is not the leader in AI, China will be in the near future. And invest a huge amount in R&D.
And when I was there recently, I visited with some designers and manufacturers of humanoid robots. Lijia, they're coming. They're coming for us. I mean, it's incredible what they're doing.
Yeah, this year's, part of the New Year ceremony in China these days is watching CCTV's New Year Gala. So the most popular, most striking one was a bunch of robots dancing with humans. They're doing kung fu martial arts.
I watched that. And I was it's like you brought up the New Year. I have my fire horse right here. This is real, authentic.
All right, okay. I'm wearing my Chinese New Year red top.
Beautiful. So let's talk about that. This is 2026. We're now in the beginning of it still. Is the year of the fire horse, which only happens, every 60 years?
Every 60 years. Yeah, every 60 years. Yeah.
So, you and I were young kids, but I mean, 1966 was long ago, but it wasn't, but it's just like you mentioned, 1989, 1966 was also a very momentous time in Chinese history.
Yeah. So the Chinese zodiac is very interesting. So there's a 12-year cycle, and what makes Chinese zodiac more interesting is that it combines with 5 essential elements like fire, water, earth, metal, and so on. So that makes a 60-year cycle. So according to the Chinese traditional belief, that a fire horse is often associated with turbulence or with dramatic changes. So fire can bring energy, but it can also be destructive. So the last round, it was 1966. That was a monumental year in Chinese history when Chairman Mao launched a mad political movement called the Great Cultural Revolution,
right?
Which caused a huge disaster, pushed so many people injured, so many died, and the economy was pushed to the brink of a collapse. So that was the idea. And then the 6 year before that was 1906. That was just before the collapse of the Qing dynasty, China's last imperial dynasty. The 1906 was again a turbulent year. China suffered terrible natural disaster like floods. Up to 25 million people died. So this year, when this fire horse come around, some people were feeling a bit anxious. Especially now, China's facing quite a lot of a challenge. The economy has been slowing, and it hasn't picked up after COVID. The youth unemployment is really high. The property market is probably going to burst, and China's youth unemployment is really high, and the birth rate is really low.
I want to go into all those things in a second. Let's go back for a second to 2026. So when I learned at a young age, when I started going to China, one of the first things I started learning about is feng shui. just to understand culture, feng shui, from everything from design and art, but also even numbers, numerical feng shui, and the beauty of eight and the importance of eight, and many of the other. Talk a little bit about when you are, as someone who bridges both East and West, the way you have seemed to seamlessly do. What do you take that past performance of 1906 and 1966 and factor it into any decision making? If you're a woman thinking about getting married, if you're a business person thinking about making a big investment, how is tradition and modernity intersecting now when it comes to feng shui and the zodiac, the importance of potentially an auspicious or a non-auspicious zodiac?
Oh, I guess people, I believe one thing which is a bit funny. It's called 不可不信,不可全信. So quite a lot of people take this attitude. Don't believe it totally.
Okay.
And don't trust it completely. Don't not disbelieve it completely or something like that.
Okay.
You cannot not believe it, but you cannot believe it totally.
Do some people plan to have children on special zodiac years? Like, I believe if my homework was correct, you are a dragon lady.
Yes, right? Of course, no less. I'm a dragon. Yes,
that's a very good zodiac, right? That's an auspicious zodiac for you, right?
Because yes, a dragon can be very powerful, but it can be also destructive. I hope I'm powerful some.
I think you've got the powerful. I don't think you're destructive. I think you're the powerful sometimes. I
can breathe fire when I'm angry.
Every time I go to China, and I've been from Dalian to Guangzhou and Shenzhen, and all the time, just make repeated visits on business and to understand my partners and to understand my clients over there. I love just seeing what's happening socially, and there's a whole new generation of young people that are thriving, and they are not only thriving, it goes way beyond what you described earlier of having to eat the toasted circadians. They have this more disposable income than ever before, and they're enjoying all the wonderful trappings of education and success and things of that sort. But as you pointed out a little while ago, there's also what comes with that kind of fast and massive growth comes some also thought-provoking trends or things that are also concerning for when you want to build a balanced economy, such as
for example,
the rat generation or the laying down generation. Isn't that part of it?
Yes, Tang Ping. This is a character called Ge Yu, a famous actor. He played a role. He just gave up trying anything, just lying down, called Tang Ping, lying flat.
Yeah.
That's because the young people they are having quite a hard time now. When the reform opening up started, there was quite a big of a leap in social mobility. But now the social mobility has been stagnated. And lots of, as I mentioned briefly, that the youth unemployment is very high, some as high as 25%. So sometimes they have to, university graduates have to be forced to take up lowly paid jobs like delivery men and things like that. So there was no point to trying. So that some people just give up and lying flat. And associated with that is a new phenomenon called rat people. So the people, some of them even show off their lifestyle on social media. They rent very cheaply basement or something like that. They slept during the day. At night they play computer games and give up trying because the life is so hard. And some of them have gone back home, kind of living off their parents, called 啃老.
Lijia, though, isn't it fair to say, given that you have a great, you've spent a good portion of your life now in the West, and I live here in the United States as well, that 1998 was the founding of Google. So let's just call that a starting point for the technological revolution. It accelerated for then 22 years. Then 2020 came, and during those 22 years of acceleration of the technological revolution, loneliness and isolation became more and more normalized, not only in China but around the world. We talk about, and then COVID, gave us the opportunity to connect vis-a-vis these wonderful technologies like we're doing today with Zoom. More isolation even happened. So we come out of COVID, and isolation and loneliness seems to be an epidemic, not only relegated to youth in China, but really now we see it even here in the West. It's real, and there's a whole generation of very lonely people that don't have the people skills that you were forced to hone and develop as a young lady, that I was forced as a young man, because we didn't have technology. Everything was done in person, nose to nose, and it was ubiquitous to do everything face to face. So isn't that really, even though it's called rat there, they gave it a name, or laying down or lying down, can't we say that's actually something that's even part of the Western problems that are rising as well?
Yes, I think social media is really a tricky issue. We rely on it so much, but also, if you spend far too much time on the social media, you become lonely. You don't have the warmth of human interaction. Yeah. So that's not. China has indeed another. I've asked to write a short story recently. A friend read it and said, "Wow, the lifestyle of the today's young people very similar." Yeah, it's actually. Another thing I mentioned briefly that is that the total fertility rate, birth rate, is very low. Many young people don't want to get married anymore. And I believe the trend is set by urban, educated women.
Right.
So many young, I think it was quite interesting for me. I'd done quite a lot of interviews when I went to China last time. So I interviewed women about their changing attitude towards marriage and sex and motherhood. And just so many of them I think the pattern fits into the pattern of the developed world. When a country develops, women get good education, they are not so keen to have family anymore. And they want to live their times, they want to take control of their lives. They want to live their life fully on their own terms. Their parents, of course, often pressure them to getting married, but they want to live their life. Many educated urban women do not see marriage or motherhood as necessary ingredients of a happy life.
Isn't it fair to say, like you just said, that's part of a rising economy? That's a trend that then becomes part of a rising and thriving economy, with more education becoming democratized to more. So yes. Aren't we seeing that same trend actually even more profoundly in South Korea and even in Japan as well?
Yes, I mean, all these countries with low birth rate, there's something unite them. You know what? The low position women. There's no gender equality, which is why, I mean, in China, the mother married women with children are not treated so well. So which is why some women, very career-minded women, do not want to have children, because they don't want to lose out the race.
So marriage rates are down, birth rates are down, divorce rates are rising.
Yes, yeah. No, the current fertility rate in China is only slightly more than 1, between 1 and 1.02, which is way below the replacement level of 2.2, actually 2.1.
So the government has relaxed the one child, one family policy now, and you're allowed to have more than one child now, I take it, in China.
They relaxed the control quite a few years ago, 2015, 2016, that sort of time. People are allowed to have 2 children. But many young people have not take up the offer.
Right, right.
But in some places, even I encourage people to have three.
I love this. I love this line. This was I'm quoting you, but I thought this summed it up really best. You said the economy is the best contraception.
Yes, I said that in one interview. I cannot remember when.
I love it. I love that. But no, wait a second. I talk to my friends over in China all the time. We email, we text, we talk all the time. Besides visiting them, and I have business colleagues there, and they told me one of the big trends, and I want you to tell me if this is real or not, is that professional older women are now dating younger men in China.
That trend it exists everywhere, but yes, there are plenty of women dating young women. They call them 小鲜肉, little fresh meat.
Oh my gosh. But wait a second. I mean, okay, I'll leave it at that. So that, wow.
You learned the new phrase, 小鲜肉. Yeah.
I'm learning a lot of new things today. That's what I'm going to tell you right now, Lijia. I'm learning a lot of new things. So let's talk about, I want to toggle between two things that I think are very important to discuss. One, you've had really a very impactful and big career for someone who started, really under tough circumstances, and you have had this huge history, but you're still very, relatively speaking, Warren Buffett's 95 and still, the executive chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. So the good news for people like you and me is that we still have a long runway in front of us. What's your passion today when you're picking topics to lecture about, write about, either write a book or write fresh columns about? What's in your heart and soul that you want to be covering today?
I want to have people have a better understanding of China, and I always encourage people to go to China as if I'm doing them. If they go to China, they're doing me a personal favor. But I just think China is such an amazing country. It is with a long history. So, that's one thing I want people to go to China. I also want to talk with them about the misconception. Yeah. For example, quite a lot of people, for example, in London, they say they don't want to go to China because China is a nasty country. Well, China, Xi Jinping may not be the most enlightened leader in the world, but I don't think one should mess up, confuse individual Chinese people with the government.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're right. And I think he has by the way, I have huge empathy for him. I think he has an incredibly tough job. That's a very diverse, geographically diverse, economically diverse.
It is, yes. It's actually, China is 1.4 million people, and there are, 5-6 minorities, including Han Chinese. There are, 55 different minorities. Yes, it's. I think people often this is one of the common misconceptions about China. I think of the Chinese government, China is just one unified mind, which is not true. And also, it's also not true that everybody hates the government or everybody is patriotic.
No.
Yeah.
So wait a second. So how many children did you have in your life, Lijia?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters. And they're in their 20s now or 30s?
Yeah, they are in their 20s. My younger daughter just got engaged.
Congratulations.
On her 27th birthday while flying hot air balloon in Mexico City.
Oh, congratulations
to her partner.
Is that the first one to get engaged? Is that the first of your 2 to get engaged?
First, yes.
Congratulations. Congratulations. So now I want you to, since this is your passion, so you have 2 children, I have 2 children as well, a boy and a girl in their 30s. When you're speaking to the next generation, that's where we're putting our hope and our trust in, when you're telling them go and learn about China, what do you advise them? Where do you tell them to go first? What do you tell them to go see to really get the best impact and the beauty and the wonders of the people, the food, the history, and the modernity that China gets to have all in one wonderful country.
Just be open-minded and try everything. Try to eat everything.
No, no kidding. No kidding. I try to eat everything, and boy, my stomach hurts because I have the most fun when I'm in China because the food is so good over there. The food is
the food is getting better and more, and also the fusion food I really like.
So you have two. So let's talk about your two daughters, though, not specifically, but just as a mom. So you come. You're. When I read your history, the deep version of your history, your grandmother was a courtesan turned concubine, if I have that right. Was that on your mother's side? Your mom's mom?
Yes, that was my mother's side, yes.
Then your mom was, of course, as you said, a state factory worker in the rocket factory. You became a rocket factory girl who then turned writer and columnist and public speaker. So where are we now today with with the woman's rise economically, educationally? And I first want to know one thing. Was the Tiger Mom thing real, or is that more of a legend? Was your mom a Tiger Mom? Were you a Tiger Mom? Where's this whole Tiger Mom thing? Is this reality, or is this more of a fictional urban legend?
Right. I'm going to start from the beginning, tell you a little bit about the women in my family, my maternal side. My grandmother was a very special person. She was the one who brought me up.
Wow.
Shortly before she passed away, I learned a shocking secret in our family. Shortly before she passed away, my mother told me that my grandmother was a courtesan in her youth. She explained that when my grandmother was young, about 7, 8 years old, she lost her parents to her in a famine. So she was then adopted by her aunt's family, who treated her like a slave. And then the aunt's husband sold her to Brussels. In those days, before the Chinese Communist Party took power, women were treated like a common commodity. So anyway, so she worked there and for 10 years. And during that time, she met my grandfather, who was a John. You don't associate your grandmother with a prostitute or your grandpa with a John. So, but anyway, that was what happened. But my grandmother then became his concubine. And then in 1949, the Chinese Communist Party took power. Men were ordered to keep one wife. So my grandpa decided to stay with his concubine and set his tough wife. So probably for that reason alone, my grandmother loved Chairman Mao.
Wow. So when you think back on your grandmother who raised you, what was some of the advice that she gave you that you've taken into your life and you still think about her and think about the advice she gave you that has served you really well?
My grandmother was a Buddhist, and she always told us to be kind to other people and be extra kind to people worse off than you are. So I always remembered her teaching. She was an amazing woman. And my mother, she was she was 12 years old when the Chinese Communist Party took over power. And she really appreciated that because the China at that time presented a hope. And she then got a job working for a state-owned enterprise, and she was really happy. Just comparing, the China before the 1949, China suffered terribly, and it was very turbulent years in the Chinese history. So she did. My mother worked all her life. Basically did the same kind of job, and her job was to pickling metal parts. You sank the metal machine parts in a tank full of chemicals and to treat that metal. And it was very much a man's job. But during Chairman Mao's time, Chairman Mao had to say, women can hold up half the sky. And his way to treat gender equality was to deny the physical difference between men and women. At that time, the model women was the Dazhai was an agriculture model. So the women from Dazhai, they dressed like men, they behaved like men, they could carry as much as a night saw as men. So those so those are the image of the Chinese model women.
How many siblings did your mom have?
My mother she was only a child.
How many siblings did you have? You said you were number 2. How many were in your family?
I had an elder sister who was much more beautiful than me. I had a younger brother. So you see, my sister got everybody's affection because she was the first child. And then I had a brother who was extremely favored by everybody. So I didn't get much attention.
So talk a little bit about that. Are your siblings still alive? Are they still here with us?
Yes, my sister, she just retired. She worked for government.
Okay.
For her job was she worked for her government. So she.
Your brother?
Always being very patriotic, and told me do not say anything slightly negative about China. I said, of course.
And your brother? Where's your brother? What did he do?
My brother, he works as a debt collector at a bank. This was a job my sister found for him.
In China? In
Nanjing. My sister and brother and their family all live in Nanjing. And my brother, he's a Buddhist. He's not interested in anything else but Buddhism. Anyway, so he didn't want a demanding job. Yeah. So my family, women are much stronger than men.
Wow. And are the 3 of you still close? Do you stay in close touch at least?
My brother lives a world of his own. Okay. He does not even talk to his wife properly, let alone us.
So he's more introspective, more of an introvert. You and your sister are more close.
Yes, my sister and we chat regularly.
That's so nice.
Even though we are completely different.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That makes it more interesting, actually. So
yes, exactly.
So now your daughters are young women in their 20s with the whole world in front of them. Are they more westernized or easternized, or do they have a happy balance of their Chinese and Western roots as well?
I think they have a happy balance of both. Yes, the Chinese speakers, and my older daughter, she's an actress. So so my guiding principle in life is to pursue what really interests you, what you feel passionate about.
Got it. And she lives in London, or she lives in. Yeah.
She lives. We all live in London.
Got it. Yeah. And your other daughter, what's her dream?
Sorry.
What's your other daughter's dream?
My other daughter, she studied human geography. She's been working as a social researcher. She finds that very interesting. She loves that.
So now to the important question: was your mom? Was your mom, when you look back, was your mom a tiger mom?
No, my mother was not a tiger mom. We were looked after by my grandmother. And I think she felt a little bit jealous, but she was not a tiger mother, and sometimes I wish I were more tiger mother.
You're not.
No, I'm not. For example, my daughter was an older daughter. She was interested. She loved singing, dancing. She could sing before she could walk properly.
So you weren't a tiger. So what do they call? My friends in China tell me for the mothers that aren't tiger moms, they're now called panda moms. Are you a panda mom?
I'm not a panda mom. My children call me Lao Ma, which is the term of endearment. It means old mother.
Oh, that's sweet.
I don't want it. I'm not old yet.
Oh, no, no. Yeah. Well, my kids call me old too. Don't worry about it. We're both in the same. They love doing that. That's their way of showing love to us by needling us. I think that's a little bit of show. Talk a little bit about what's in the future for you now. What are you most excited about? You've done so much, but there's so much yet to do, and it's such an exciting time. We have more information than ever before at our fingertips. Are you working on a book? Are you working on a column? Are you working on something? What are you working on right now that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh, I'm every day I looking forward to sitting in front of my computer and start writing, really. So I just finished a bigger project, a historical novel inspired by China's first feminist. Her name is Qiu Jing. I think she's one of the most colorful character in contemporary China. We're talking about the end of the Qing dynasty. She was beheaded in 1907. I knew what happened in 1906 because I did some research. When I was writing this book.
Sure.
And she was beheaded in 1907, beheaded for organizing a military uprising. At that time, women were supposed to stay at home, but she had a public role. She ran a school to train insurgent. So she was China's first feminist and China's feminist revolutionary. But she was also somebody who got a big ego, and she believed she was sent by some divine force to save China. She sometimes, children was referred to as China's Joan of Arc.
Wow. And you're writing. Is your historical perspective going to be, paper, or is it going to be in a book? Is that going to be published as a book or a paper?
Anyway, so I just found an agent in December when I passed through New York before on my way to South America. So anyway, that's my agent is reading the book right now. And meanwhile, while I was traveling in Argentina, I was introduced to a friend, and he, among other things, he's an independent publisher specialized in publishing books in Argentina, some about China. And he thinks China is, like me, China is most consequential country, but people don't know enough about China. So that's what he does. He read some of my travel blogs and loved them. He said, could you please turn your travel blogs into a book? Well, I agreed, but I cannot just simply transport my travel blog, so I have to write properly. So that's what I'm doing now. It's a little bit of self-indulgent, but I'm loving it.
So talk about the duality of life. It sounds like you love writing. You love writing. It's like that's your peace and that's your happiness. But it seems also, some writers I know are very introverted. You're very social. You're very people oriented. So you love the writing, but you also love traveling and meeting new people and building a social network around the world.
Yes. Can I tell you a small story?
Of course.
When my children were young, I always tell them talking to strangers.
You told them to talk to strangers?
Yeah. So when my memoir came out, a young journalist from a local newspaper, local magazine called Beijing Kids, come to interview me. And she's really, that's among so many people written about the profile story about me, but that remains one of the best. So she interviewed me, and then my children come back home. She began to interview my children. She said, so your mother is Chinese, your father is British. Do you feel the way you were treated do they treat you, educate you differently? May, my older daughter, said, my mother always told us to talk to strangers. My father said, never, ever talk to strangers. We don't know what to do. Should we talk to strangers or not?
Oh my gosh. That is the funniest story.
I said, talk to strangers different from getting into a car for strange men.
Right.
I just think you always use your common sense, but talk to people, your word will become big.
That's so sweet. That's so funny, though, because you're right. Parents usually say, don't talk to strangers. You were giving your children the opposite advice, but you were giving them great a great push to become sociable and personable. So I love that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so each person reach your life in one way or another.
True. Hey, we talked about some of the other trends in China. Let's talk about one of the funnest trends I'm seeing, and tell me what your thoughts about it are. Is this whole new thing? Is you and I saw the rise of K-pop, obviously, and with the the K dramas and all that other stuff that's come around the world. There's a whole new trend now that I'm seeing, and I spend a lot of time in New York, Los Angeles, and other cities in the United States. China maxing. This China maxing thing has become big.
I've heard about the China maxing, but I honestly don't know enough to make any comments.
Is it coming to London? I mean, is a generation of young people China maxing there? There seems to be this whole new thing of taking in Chinese culture and promoting it on social media, and really, they're calling it China maxing. I don't know. Talk a little bit about it. You've heard about it, but have you seen it in person?
There was a podcast. I subscribed to a podcast, which is the topic as China maxing, and I didn't understand it, so I haven't listened to it now. You inspired me to listen to it.
So here's the deal. What's going to happen is when your book gets published, because this I hope this agent gets it published. I want you to come back on the show, and I want to promote the book. I want to promote the book.
Thank you. I really one lives in hope. So I hope I will find a decent publisher, and I hope to sell the film rights.
Oh, I like it. And then if you sell the film rights, you're going to get your daughter a part in the film, I assume.
Yes.
So listen, we've talked a lot about a lot of topics today. What haven't we talked about that you want our listeners and viewers to come away with from this show, from a life of bridging the information gap between the East and the West? What didn't we talk about that you'd love our listeners and viewers to leave them with a few thoughts of yours?
China is not a threat, and go to visit China. You'll be grateful, and I'm happy to give you some advice. The one thing that put people off is, for example, for American to go to China. Once you are in China, you won't be able to access New York Times or the BBC or Facebook. But there's an easy way to get around it. Get an international SIM card, special designed for China. So when you arrive, you have to activate it before you leave. Once you arrive, you just start using it. That will allow you to access to all the usual stuff, New York Times or Facebook or whatever. So and you just download Alipay, which allow you to use you can pay. That Alipay will connect your bank accounts. So there are a few little things you have to pay. Otherwise, it's not that. Traveling in China, it's not that easy. Traveling in China is not that challenging. Sorry, correct myself.
I so agree. I'll tell you what, I think it's one of the greatest countries on this planet, and the people, I've always had the warmest greetings and hosting by everyone I've ever met in China. The food, the culture, the history, but also the modernity. Every time I go to Shanghai, I'm just blown away by and Shenzhen, and how I went to Shenzhen starting in 1993. When I go there now, I'm like, I can't even believe it's the same city anymore.
It is. I mean, when I first arrived in this country in 1990, and I feel England was so advanced. Yeah. But I just went to China a few months ago, and in big cities like Nanjing, Shanghai, when you buy the train tickets, months beforehand which platform you are going. And it's just so old, and the train, which is so fast, so reliable. But anyway, so in London, for example, you just a few minutes to go, you still don't know which platform you are going.
Tell me about it. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in New York City on the public transportation. We were praying this train would show up.
And also the New York, got a character, but it still looks so old. Train runs like a dream.
True. And somehow, the cities have figured out, the leadership how to blend the modern architecture and leave the historical monuments and architecture. So it's a beautiful blend of new and old.
Yeah, I think China benefit a great deal from infrastructure. It's probably partly thanks to the influence of Soviet Union. China always paid lots of attention to infrastructure that really greatly improved the productivity of China.
Lijia, I know you've had such a fascinating and successful career that you've created from literally nothing. And but I think your skills and your perspective is actually more needed now more than ever before. I think what you're doing as serving as a bridge between the East and the West is so needed and necessary. So I was so excited to have you on the show today. So I promise you, I'm going to have you back again because I want you to be able to continue to share your wonderful and fresh perspective, but also hopefully you'll have a book to share with us that gets made into a movie. Hollywood, I hope you'll.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, for our listeners and viewers, we're going to give Lijia's website. It will be in the show notes. We're going to give also links to some of her greatest hits here. She has so many wonderful books that we can all learn from. And Lijia, just thank you for your time today. Thank you for serving as the important bridge and voice of the East and the West and bringing us more together to make hopefully a better future. And thank you overall for just making the world a better place.
Oh, yeah, so kind. Thank you so much. Thank you for making my day, John.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.